Hey guys, it's Daniel. I got another very interesting video I came across that I thought you guys would be interested in seeing, and we can break this down as we go. But I've noticed recently how Fox News tends to, how shall I say, obsess and fetishize Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and blame her for everything. So we're going to be watching a clip on Fox News Business where they're still blaming Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez for a closure or not opening of an Amazon facility that's not in her district, that she has no actual control over. Let's see what our good friends at Fox have to say about this.
Like in the words of Homer Simpson, doom!
Yeah.
Because it really was kind of one of those moments. But I mean,
Always good to start a business segment off with Homer Simpson.
really think about what happened here. I mean, she thought that there was a $3 billion check written to Amazon basically for this. We know there isn't. It was an...
Okay, so this has been a big thing that's been going around at Fox. Oh, she had no idea that they couldn't, because it's a tax exemption. Blah, blah, blah. Again, she doesn't have to be aware of the details for something that doesn't happen in her own backyard.
incentive. And when you look at the math, and again, I'm not a math major, but it's $27 billion basically in revenues that were expected to come over a period of time. 25,000 jobs.
And I just want to go back to previous reporting that we've done, specifically with the Foxconn studio in Wisconsin when we covered that. They were doing eminent domain on private land for a private company based in Taiwan who was given enormous amounts of money by Wisconsin to build this facility. They promised a certain amount of jobs at a certain amount of pay. It went from like, oh, we'll give 25,000 jobs to we'll give 20,000 jobs to we'll give 15,000 jobs to we'll do 10,000. Okay, maybe we'll do 3,000 jobs. So I just want to say on its face, I don't know whether or not Amazon was going to follow through with the number of jobs that they were talking about, and I don't know whether they were going to follow through on the prices that they've set. All I'm saying is, in my experience, our experience in coverage at Hard Lens Media, it's always less than what is advertised. It's always a nice, shiny thing to say, but never to follow through on.
Jobs lost, average of 150,000. She calls them scraps, by the way.
They apparently didn't get my memo that I didn't want any video of Colin McShane in the show, or Charles Payne or David Asman. That memo didn't get through. But having said that, that was the guy who created, from the Jobs Creators Network, this billboard that's prominently displayed in New York's Times Square, reading 25,000 lost New York City jobs, $4 billion in lost wages, $12 billion in lost economic activity for New York. Thanks for nothing, AOC, obviously referring to...
Okay, now I want to bring this up. The Jobs Creator Network, and I would just say, Google it yourself so you can get even better information than what I'm about to say, is basically one of those groups that are created by multi-billionaires. I believe this one, the Jobs Creator Network, or Job Creators Network, was founded by the CEO of Home Depot, or something of that nature. It also is very connected with the Mercers, which of course deal with drug prices and a lot of medical type things. Very, very, very rich family. So that's an important context, that this billboard that's coming up in the middle of Times Square, which aren't cheap, a billboard in this area is, you know, probably a couple $100,000 for a campaign of it to be at. So you can't just, oh, I'm going to do this. You have to have money to put a billboard like that together. But we're going to see how Fox News reacts to what I just said and how they take the information when they see it.
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, she welcomed that Amazon decided to bolt from the city because it said the $3 billion in tax credits that the company was getting were coming at the detriment of New Yorkers. Not everyone agrees with that, including this next guest, Republican New York City Minority Whip, Joe Borelli.
Okay, so again, now we're bringing in more Republican talkers. Again, what it really comes down to is the only reason they're talking about AOC is because she gets views. It's because that's all they talk about anyway. So if they see New York, something happens with Amazon, and we've covered previously, again, that what Amazon pulled out of was very minor pushback. The local alderman or whoever it was that was asking was like, hey, can you maybe follow environmental laws? It'd be pretty nice. Hey, can you do these other things. It was relatively benign stuff, I thought. Didn't seem to be much more than an open negotiation that Amazon's coming in. You're going to be in our area. Are you going to pollute the water? Yes, no. And instead of doing any amount of negotiation, instead of saying to them, oh yeah, no, I see that we didn't say anything about the being clean within the environment. Let's negotiate, figure out what to do. No. Instead, Amazon heard just the demands, the discussion, whatever you want to call it, and pulled out. There was no chance for a discussion to be had. Amazon just picked up their ball and walked away. This is after Amazon has gotten data on every single city bowing down and offering their tribute. Oh, you can, in Chicago, where we are, Emmanuel offered to give them the wage tax. What am I looking for? The payroll taxes that they would normally have to pay to the government. The city was going to be like, no, keep those for yourself. And you remember when that happened? Every single city was bowing on their knees trying to get Amazon to eat out of their hand, offering them anything that they wanted. And so Amazon, of course, knew that they didn't want any city. They just wanted a better deal on the current city they were looking at, which was the Pentagon contract that they had to fulfill anyway, that was outside of D.C. And then this spot that they wanted, that they were going to get a $3 billion reduction in their taxes on. So we said in the previous time that we talked about it on our live show, why did Amazon walk away from $3 billion after such minor questioning? Just asking them, hey, can we do these other things? Amazon leaves. So I think that there's a bigger story that's not being talked about of why did Amazon leave so quickly, especially since they're a multi-billion-dollar company? If they wanted to be in New York, they would be in New York. One little alderman and some grassroots would have not stopped them. Why did Amazon pull out for such a small reason?
Joe, what do you make of the reaction she had that this was really just paid for by billionaire-funded groups, that the Jobs Creators Network is really just that? You say what?
Neil, I wish the billboard was bigger. I mean, frankly, I'm not concerned with who the job network creators are and who.
That's a poor thing to say, even for a Republican, because you know for a fact if some billionaire they don't like a Soros type or something, had done that exact same thing, had put a billboard up in Times Square, and it was paid by some company, by Soros, Fox News, that guy right there would be screaming at the top of their lungs, screaming that this was a Soros-built sign, and then they would care. But now that it's something that also funds Fox, probably funds his campaign. I don't know this guy, I don't know his campaign. Maybe that's a little too much to predict. Perhaps that's a reason for him not to care, but I care.
Who their backers are, anything like that. The problem is that it's 100% accurate, Neil. There are 25,000 potential jobs that New Yorkers will not get. These are real jobs. These are careers. People like AOC, people like other Democratic politicians here in this city have spent hours, weeks, months, years trying to fight for minimum wage increases. This is a company that wanted to come and pay 4, 5, 6 times the minimum wage.
And just a reminder, it wasn't until Bernie Sanders got them to increase their pay to minimum wage, $15 an hour, that Amazon was even paying people minimum wage. So to say that, again, whenever a company says, we'll pay you all this money and we're going to have all these jobs, my experience says, unless that's written in stone, it's not written in stone.
And really give New Yorkers a path out of poverty. I mean, this is something that it just fundamentally is so sad that someone could wear their naivety on their sleeve and be proud of it at the expense of real New York families.
You know what's interesting about
Republicans always caring about New York families.
About it, I don't think the critics of Amazon ever thought in their wildest dreams that Amazon would just say, oh, the heck with it, we're not going to do it. So I don't think they were planning on that, and now...
Yeah, I don't think anyone expected Amazon to pull out after questions were asked.
Now they're trying to cover their heinies to say, all right, well, net, this is going to be better now because the $3 billion earmarked to help the company will actually go back to New Yorkers when, in fact, that is not the case here.
Right, and that's part of the problem, is that she poisoned the well for New York residents to give them this idea that this, 2.5 at the end of the day, some of that money could be actually be redirected, but $2.5 billion.
You notice that little piece of it? He's like, well, yeah, some of it we could have redirected. I think there was like, I don't know, a tenth of it. I think like $350 million could have been redirected. And you know what's really good use for $350 million of New York money? I don't know, tearing up the student loans of people with debt. Because a lot of times when they can't pay, you can buy that debt for pennies on the dollar, and there have been times we've covered in the past where someone will, pay, they'll raise $400,000 and be able to forgive like $20 million of student loan debt. So maybe instead of doing $350 million to Amazon, they could get some of that that debt that's owned by people who are maybe in default that you can get for pennies on the dollar, and they could probably, for $350 million, I'm sure they could undo more than $3 billion worth of New York debt. I'm just saying.
Would go to addressing some of the real problems that people of this city face. I mean, it was wrong, it was incorrect, it was inaccurate, and she used that to justify why she was doing what she was doing. There's a real cost to be paid from not having Amazon here, and you're absolutely right. People wanted to see if Amazon will call the bluff, and they did, and they're gone, and now they...
Oh, and that reminds me, I believe there's another reason that they brought up, that they were already worried about gentrification in the area in which it was going to be built, and so they were worried that Amazon putting a facility there, nothing else being done, would lead to, like we've seen in the city of Chicago, of course not from Amazon, but from many other things, just people that have lived there for generations would have to just leave because they wouldn't be able to afford work anymore, especially if it is just like an executive office. Oh yeah, and they were also going to get a taxpayer-funded helipad, so yeah.
They have to live with that.
Joe, do you ever worry, though, that a lot of conservatives make her such an issue, that is, Congresswoman Cortez, that their anger isn't much...
Says the guy who's literally doing a segment on her when she doesn't have any direct relationship to this facility itself.
It's different than the left's anger at the president, and that you can be so consumed with anger that you only help the person you're targeting.
Well, I don't think it's about being consumed with anger over AOC. I think it's about addressing the fact that she really is the one driving the message of the Democratic Party. I mean, she came out with the Green New Deal last month, and it was wildly absurd in some of its, fantasy ideas. And yet you saw all the Democratic nominees for...
You know what's a fantasy? The internet 20 years ago. It's only a fantasy until it's done. Electric cars are only a fantasy until they're built. Electrification of the country through solar panel, wind, I would say nuclear, is only a fantasy until it's reality. Having coal-powered power plants lighting up a city is only fantasy until it's reality. Maybe he's making a case that his voters really care about. That we can't do anything new, we can't expand, we can't have new things. But at the same time, he's yelling about an Amazon facility not being there.
President. I mean, people who we probably should be taking more seriously as politicians than AOC, but they all jumped on her lead and followed her in the bandwagon. I mean, this is who the media has chosen, and frankly, she has tried to assume this role. But this is who the Democrats have championing their message and basically establishing what their plan of attack is for the next 2 years.
But there might be something what you say, because some of those prominent Democrats, including Senator Durbin in Illinois, are stepping back from a lot of her calls and a lot of her more, over-the-top spending plans. So it's as if they've either read polling data or other things that I'm not familiar with and say, we better dial this back. What did you make of that?
Well, sure. I think you saw some of the blowback from being as unrealistic.
So I'm going to go and just say within 2 sentences of himself, he goes from all the Democrats are following her lead on everything to, yeah, no, they're not. There's some pushback. So pick one, or just be nuanced. Either one, I'm fine with either.
As she was.
Like
I mean, someone like Cory Booker, someone like Elizabeth Warren, people who are progressives but have more of a grounding in policy, probably came to the conclusion that this was more fantasy than reality. It read sort of like my son's Christmas wish list, quite frankly. So I'm not surprised that they...
Wow, your son must be a good guy. I mean, if he's going with that, his son must have asked for universal health care, minimum wage. So he's raising his son very well, apparently. So, you know, bravo with him.
They read the tea leaves and said that this is probably not a good thing. I mean, the same thing happened with Cory Booker now with Amazon, where he has come out and said Amazon would be welcome to come in New Jersey, and he's not wrong, frankly.
Yeah, we'll watch it closely. Joe, always good seeing you, my friend. Thank you very much.
Okay. Where to start? Okay. So the reason I picked this out is I keep seeing Fox. If you look at Fox, if you just look up Fox on YouTube and you just look through, it's like every other video they do is on Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. It's very either, depending on how you look, it's either creepy or good or bad. It's all these different things. It's very fascinating. So on one hand, they have this person, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who is kind of everything that the right has, Fox, I guess, in this case, has instilled fear on these young immigrant women who are coming to replace and change everything. And this is just like Trump was this kind of vacuous figure that Fox described, a rich, self-made, even though he's not self-made, billionaire, even though he's not a billionaire, except maybe now. That kind of amorphous idea really led to Trump being elected and Trump being so loved, because they created this kind of mold that he fit in perfectly. And AOC is simply the opposite of that mold. She's the immigrant woman, yeah, again, everything. And remember, Fox News viewers, the average age of their audience is about 7, and have views that we would consider in this day and age antiquated. So I think that there's a bit of lust after her, because at the same time all those fears have been put, they've also completely sexualized minorities for, you know, generations. So I think all these kind of amorphous factors are kind of, that have all culminated with AOC and all the circumstance around her. So she's someone that has a lot of power, and she's both feared, hated, and loved, and believed in by many different sides. And so everything's her fault, according to them. She can talk about giving money to that was going to be given, that was going to be in tax breaks, and you can have that issue with her. And it sounds like she misspoke on that. Of course, like I said, there's still about 10% of that she didn't misspeak on. So I don't know whether or not she was directly talking about that. But what I think we have to go with here is, this is Fox News, and they're worried. And they are making a story, ostensibly, about a business deal that didn't happen and a billboard, blaming it on someone who, again, is not even in the district in which it happened and had no direct control over this facility happened. These were grassroots organizations, and I think one alderman or whatever they have in New York. And again, I really think that a big thing that's not being talked about anywhere with Amazon is, why did they pull out of a $3 billion deal that they wanted ahead of time, that they already picked ahead of time, after such little resistance? Again, it wasn't even resistance. Even de Blasio set out a tweet that was like, they were just asking questions. Here's what Amazon is losing. They wouldn't even negotiate. That's interesting. Why was Amazon, this multi-billion-dollar company who supposedly makes these businesses, because if it was like, this is a place that they needed to be, well, then they're losing a lot of money, much more than the $3 billion that was being talked about, by not investing in there. And they said they have no plans to build another facility anywhere soon. So if we take that at its word, why is Amazon gonna get pushed around by some local alderman? That I've never figured out. In the comments, let me know what you think the reason Amazon pulled out with such little resistance. They're making it seem like this was this huge, Ocasio-Cortez put an actual wall on Amazon, now they couldn't get in, when it wasn't to do anything with her. Let me know what you think in the comments. What's really happening? Why did Amazon actually not go there? Why did they run away after such little pushback? Let me know in the comments what you think. I'm still trying to figure it out. Anyway, this is Daniel with Hard Lens Media. We'll see you Saturday. Hey guys, do you like the video? If so, be sure to give us a sub and hit the bell for notification. You know how YouTube is. And if you have the time, check us out on our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter pages, and check us out at hardlensmedia.com. Be sure to check out our Patreon if you really support what we do and want to support us.